Good day, everyone, and to those watching.
Good day.
Today, we will talk about the country's contemporary issues. As we all know, our country is facing a lot of contemporary issues in Philippines that likely most victims are in the poorest sector of the community. With the contemporary issues rising in our country, you guys will comment on issues that we are now facing. But before we give some insights or solutions on your lands, we will define first our chosen issues. First, we have abortion. Second, physician-assisted suicide. Third, global poverty. And fourth and last is gun rights. First, we have abortion.
Okay, abortion remains illegal in the Philippines under all circumstances and is highly stigmatized, while a liberal interpretation of the law could exempt abortion provision from criminal liability when done to save the women's life. There are no such explicit provision.
Next, we have physician-assisted suicide.
Physician-assisted suicide is a suicide by a patient facilitated by means such as a drug prescription or by information, such as indication of lethal dosage provided by a physician aware of the patient's intent. Euthanasia is illegal in the Philippines in 1997 because the Philippine Senate considered passing a bill legalizing passive euthanasia, but the bill meets strong opposition from the country Catholic Church.
Next, we have world poverty.
Global poverty is defined as the number of people worldwide who live on less than $1.90 a day. A person surviving or less than $1.90 a day lives in extreme poverty as defined by the World Bank.
So gun rights is the entitlement of every individual who have the right to carry or own guns. So thank you so much for that. Now we will give insights and solutions with the same sequence. First, we have abortion.
Okay, the Philippines, with a steadily increasing population that is approaching 100 million, faces significant challenges in the area of reproductive health. About 25 million of it are women of reproductive age, and they experience high levels of unintended pregnancy, have relative low levels of contraceptive use, and frequently experience unsafe abortion and consequently high levels of mortality, morbidity. This report summarizes existing evidence on the context and consequences of unintended pregnancy and safe abortion in the Philippines, particularly among vulnerable populations such as poor, rural, and young women, and highlights key areas in which policymakers and reproductive health advocates can focus efforts to improve the health and well-being of Filipino women and their families. Simply put, there are two key ways to reduce abortion: by making it less necessary or by making it less available. In our view, only the former approach is humane, effective, and just. Those who oppose abortion in all or most circumstances generally think the best way to reduce the number of abortion is to make it illegal. By eliminating legal availability, they believe abortion will cease to exist. They hold this view despite undeniable evidence that women continue to have abortion in countries where it is outlawed under illegal and unsafe conditions that often result in terrible tragedy. Close to 70,000 women a year die from unsafe abortion, and numerous others suffer grave injuries, including infection, hemorrhaging, and infertility. This hurts women, their families, and whole communities, but it does very little to reduce reduce abortion. Making abortion less necessary is by far the better approach. The first way to do so is to reduce the incidence of unintended pregnancy. Unintended pregnancy could be reduced significantly if we should through commit to first comprehensive sexuality education that includes medically accurate information about abstinence and contraception. Second, insurance coverage of a public funding for family planning service. Third, greater access to emergency contraception, which prevents pregnancy and does not and sexual abuse. Clearly, women who are able to avoid unintended pregnancy do not have to make the difficult decision of whether to have an abortion.
Okay, are you done?
Yes.
Next, we have physician-assisted suicide.
So it's understandable through tragic that some patients in extreme dures, such as those suffering from a thermal, painful, debilitating illness, may come to decide that death is preferable than life. However, permitting physicians to engage in euthanasia would ultimately cause more harm than good. Euthanasia is fundamentally incompatible with the physician role as healer, would be difficult or impossible to control, and would pose serious societal risks that euthanasia could readily be extended to incompetent patients and other vulnerable populations. So the involvement of physician in euthanasia heightens the significance of its ethical provision. The physician who performs euthanasia assumes unique responsibility for the act of ending the patient's life.
Okay, so you said that some patients are extremely suffered from painful and or illnesses, and they may come to decide that death is preferable than life. So act like you're a physician to this situation. What will you do?
So instead of engaging in euthanasia, as a patient, I must aggressively respond to the needs of patient at the end of their life. I should not abandon a patient once it is determined that a cure is impossible. I must respect patient autonomy. I must provide good communication and emotional support. And I must provide appropriate comfort care and adequate pain control.
So if the patient suggests in euthanasia, so that their families won't see them suffer, will you accept or what will you do?
If the patient suggests, I'm going to ask first permission from the family before deciding to put some dosage.
Oh, thank
And
you
that's
for that. Next, we have global poverty or world poverty.
So, in global poverty, the Philippines is a country in the Pacific Ocean that is made up of over 7,000 small islands. The Philippines struggles with issues of global poverty, healthcare, and education. However, progress has been made in recent years to combat these issues and ensure that every Filipino citizen is able to live a healthy and happy life, greater access to education, and impoverished areas. People gain basic skills and increase job opportunities through education, which can help to combat poverty in the Philippines.
So about gun rights, ato sa ni ikat ha. Gun. Goodness sa time. So, ga-off lagi nag-scam si Kuya Pawpaw. Uy, ay mo pag-off cam. So about gun rights, most laws regarding civilian ownership of firearms in the Philippines concern registration and background checks. There is also focus on disarming various militant groups such as the Islamic separates groups in Mindanao, and the communist rebel groups, such as the New People's Army or what we called in PA. The Philippines has also enacted laws as a result of many incidents of armed political violence and during elections. So guns are used for hunting, target shooting, self-protection, and security purposes. But Filipinos can carry pistols and handguns in public by acquiring a permit to carry. So before we have kanang we use guns, there is permit. Okay, that's all. So thank you so much for your thoughts and comments. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, guys, for participating. God bless.